companies must never forget that their purpose is to deliver value to their customers. And I think that, like, P&L aside, that needs to be at the core of like how you build your business. And I think that if you focus on that correctly for the first 2 to 3 years, you'll develop relationship with your customers where they want you to grow and they want you to be successful.
Hello and welcome to the Real Good podcast by Neighbourgood, a podcast designed for the next generation of property entrepreneurs and investors, where our guests share with us their strategies, their stories, and their tactics on all things entrepreneurial and property investment related. My name is Murray Clark and I'm your host. Today we have with us Adam Reilly, a close friend and one of the most talented young founders I've ever had the good fortune of meeting. Adam is the CEO and co-founder of Maholla app, a Fintech company that is doing incredible things across Africa. He is someone who I look up to despite his very young age. We've become close friends over the years that I've been in Cape Town, and he has so much valuable insight to share in his entrepreneurial journey along the way. Stay tuned and enjoy. Hello and welcome to the Real Good Property Podcast. This is Murray Clark. It's awesome to see you all again today. Today, I have one of my good mates who I've grown a friendship with since moving to Cape Town in 2019. And I'm extremely excited to have you on the podcast today, my man. When I asked you, I know that everyone who's listening is either in the entrepreneurial space or in the property space. And I know your lean is in the entrepreneurial space and you're like a thoroughbred, proper entrepreneur if I've ever seen one. Like, you have done so much in your career. You're only in your 20s, but you have like a soul of a 60-year-old, except on weekends. Honestly, I admire you so much, dude. Adam Reilly, welcome to our podcast and it's awesome to have you.
Shot Maz, yeah, it's good to be here. Likewise, respect you hugely as an entrepreneur and a friend. I've never been on a podcast with my landlord before, so I'll make sure I answer the questions correctly. But no, it's lovely to be here with you and excited.
Awesome, man. I want to take you back to like little Adam. Like when you were like 2 years old, were you selling things to people on the streets?
Good question. I think I've always been interested in how money works from a very young age. Okay. I can't remember like when I decided to be an entrepreneur, but I think like I've always been very focused and I've always been sort of just very interested in this notion of like being a better version of myself every day. And I remember like sort of having that quality since a very young age. So I don't remember a time where I was like, okay, let me be an entrepreneur, but I do remember from a very young age just always wanting to be a better version of myself.
Got you. What do you think it is? I mean, do you think it's... Because I don't also remember a time when I was like, okay, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm not. I was definitely like a team person and like I love sports and love people and like, I guess, like solving problems and, you know. But at which point did you like sort of make that realization, if at all, whether it was at school or after school, where you were like, okay, I'm keen to run a business, whatever that first business was? What was your first business?
Yeah, I think the click for me was when I realized like entrepreneurship or building a company is this opportunity to be multiple versions of yourself. Like, you know, it requires analytical thinking. It requires speaking to people. It requires meeting new people. It requires solving problems on a daily basis. It requires recruiting exceptional people and getting them to believe in you and the vision that you're working on. So I think like the click moment for me where I was like, okay, I want to spend the rest of my life building companies was just realizing that it brings out this dynamic side to you and forces you to just work on yourself every day. And I was like, this is cool. That's what I want to do. And I think how I came to that was when I finished school, I got reasonably good grades and I went to study chemical engineering at UCT. And I actually thought that I was like going to go into renewable energies or something like that because I really liked how the output sounded. Like, that's something that I would like to say I do one day, kind of thing. And then like I started the program and it was fascinating, and I was so privileged to be there with like some really smart people, but just being like doing math, like from 8 to 5, which is what like sort of chemical engineering or system engineering is like. I was just like, this is leaning into too much for me into one side of my personality. And then I made like what was quite a bold decision to leave university with no like major plan. So I took like a leave of absence and I went traveling. And when I was traveling, I saw a concept overseas and I was like, this is a pretty cool concept that doesn't exist in South Africa. And it was, it sounds like a really simple concept, but it was a smoothie bowl. Like this was however many, 7 years ago, and smoothie bowls are a big thing now. You could find them anywhere, but there was no one selling a smoothie bowl in Cape Town. So I got back and I had a few months to decide, like, do I go back to university? What do I do? And I got a stand at a market and I started selling smoothie bowls. And everyone's response was like, that should be in a cup. And then you're like, oh, cool. Well, this is an example of trying to do something new and getting people to understand it. And essentially, then I was hooked. I was like, cool, I want to build businesses. And I said to my folks, like, I'm going to go back to uni, but I'm going to build a business at the same time. And I re-enrolled at university in economics and finance. And I started this chapter of building a hospitality business. And I really had no history or I really shouldn't have had the right to build a hospitality business because I didn't really necessarily have the skills to do it. I didn't have a food background. But I definitely had like the energy and the ambition to just get going. And within 3 years, that market stand became 2 locations, one on Muizenberg beachfront and one in Long Street. And then I got approached by some friends of mine to launch a new business with them called the Strangers Club. And I guess fast forward 2 years later from that point, I was back at uni and I had 3 different physical locations, 2 with the brand name Fresh and 1 the Strangers Club. And I was like running around like a headless chicken, but learning a lot. And that's when I realized like, yep, this is what I want to do with my life.
So let me just confirm, you had 3 shops open and you were at university.
Yeah, no, it was crazy. Like I remember the exam period in November. And now it's like you're also gearing up for season. And remember, I'm not a seasoned like hospitality operator. So when season comes along, it's like I'm figuring out what to do in season. And then I have like my economics exam. So it was pretty crazy. And I learned a lot in terms of time management from that. But I think the biggest lesson I learned from that, more importantly than time management or anything, was that I was too spread.
Okay.
I was like 40% at everything and I was kind of permanently frustrated. I think as an entrepreneur, you're always frustrated. It's like one of the things that's not nice about being an entrepreneur is like you want to like aspire to be a content person, but every day you wake up like frustrated because you're like, I know where I want to be, but we're not there yet.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I learned like how important focus is. Gotcha. Running around like a headless chicken, giving everything 40% of your time. And I was like, I kind of made a decision where, in the next few years, I want to bank as much learning as possible. And I want to start a new chapter where I can focus on one project and give it all of my 200, 300% of my time and energy.
Did you pass your final marks at university?
I passed the subjects that I needed to. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, awesome. Is this your first podcast? How many podcasts have you done?
It's not my first.
Oh, damn, man. I wanted to be that, like, like someone interviews Steve Jobs or like Richard Branson. It was like their first podcast and 30 years later they rewind to the first one. That's like what I want the Real Good podcast to be,
that would be
for
nice.
you, because I'm pretty convinced you're going to be on that stage one day, dude.
Lots of work, lots of hard work to be done first.
Yeah. So,
if that ever happens, we can claim this was the first one.
Yeah. So going back to the first 7 years, Fresh was a business that you started, which was essentially the cafes, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Take me back to the beginning and that process as a 21-year-old. I like to think we'll have 21-year-old and maybe younger people even listening to us. Like, starting a business is not easy. And where do you even start? Tell us like what people should do.
Yeah, 100%. So I was actually 19 when we launched the first Fresh store. And like my advice what I tell people when they do ask me, like, I want to start a business, is like really just start. Like almost spend as little time as possible, like trying to build some very intellectual model. Like I think, the consultants of the world will tell you that you must build some fancy business plan with step-by-step execution, etc. Which I think has an important role to play in the world. But I think like, you learn a lot about building a company the moment you start taking real risk with your time and with your capital. And my advice to young entrepreneurs is just get going. So for me, it was like, okay, I want to start this food business. I don't have any capital. What's the quickest way to get going? Let me get a market store. It's just on weekends.
Yeah.
I can get suppliers to agree to give me a week of credit. I can sell the produce and then I can pay them on Monday.
Okay.
And I can use the profits to run the next weekend.
Okay.
And I can sort of hustle my way into building a brand just through my time and energy and being there serving customers.
Gotcha.
And that momentum has just this way of flywheeling in such a way you can't really measure.
Yeah.
So just get going, hustle your way into creating momentum, and then try to become contagious. And like, I think building business is very, very difficult. I think my first step of advice before someone builds a business is just like, do you really want to do it?
Yeah.
Because there's no doubt that there will be one thing that is certain, is it will be very challenging.
And Strangers Club ended up becoming something that you built as well with a co-founder as well.
Yeah.
And I've been there a few times, and I think it's an iconic brand in Cape Town that is, I value brands so much in terms of building Neighbourgood with Kim and Sinj and the whole team. And as a property company, thinking about how important brand is, we look at Strangers Club as a model brand, I guess. It's only got one store. Tell us about that journey and how co-founding it with.
Yeah, I think the Strangers Club was such an amazing project. I was very lucky to be approached by the Vith family, who own the Strangers Club building. And they've owned it for many years. It's the original Greenpoint farmhouse, and their family has been in the courier business for a long time. And they definitely have an eye for aesthetic and interior design and detail. And they approached me and they said, listen, half the property's not being utilized. Let's build a business. And Emma, who was a close friend of mine at school, she had lots of energy. She's passionate about brand building, and she just loves creating beautiful spaces. So I stepped in there and I could play a role of focusing on building a business around this very unique space. And I think in the sort of 2-3 years I was there, we built something unique. I'm not part of the business anymore, but the family still runs it. Emma's doing an exceptional job, and it's cool to go there for a coffee and see the staff. They just have the most wonderful staff, and to still be able to experience that is like, it definitely makes me feel proud.
Amazing.
And I think just one more thing I'll touch on there is like just hospitality as a business model. And I think that people should start their careers in hospitality if they want to build a business. And even if they don't start their careers in hospitality, they should go work as a waiter or back of house in a kitchen, because you're so close to your customer. Like if you serve a bad product, your customer will tell you then and there. If you're having a bad day, you will see it, because people will leave. You'll see disgruntled expressions on people's faces. There's just like, there's no space between your product and the satisfaction of the final customer. You're just so close to it. And I think it's the most important principle in business, is like you start a business to serve your customers. And whether you're in tech or real estate or hospitality or consulting, like you can never lose touch with that. And hospitality puts you so close to your customer that it just, you can't hide.
Yeah.
Like you're standing behind the coffee machine and someone gets a bad cup of coffee, like you're going to have to deal with that then and there, and it's not fun.
How many times did that happen?
Yeah, it happened a lot to me.
Were you making the coffee?
Yeah, my staff were much better than me at that stuff. So when I planned badly and there weren't enough staff, I would have to step in and generally let the team down.
It's hard to get upset with that smiling face that you've got, Ed. I think even if you served me a bad cup of coffee, I'd be fine, man.
Yeah, it's important to learn how to smile.
So now 7 years later, I think your new venture, which is probably your most exciting, and super exciting to watch from the outside. I've just been like cheering you on from the sidelines. Maholla. right? Have I pronounced it correctly?
Mahala.
Mahala. What does it mean?
So, I mean, Mahala is like free, and there's various versions of that word. We kind of created our own spelling for it. So it's Maholla.
Okay.
And it's unique spelling. So it's not a real word, but it's a play on this word free. And basically, Mahala is a consumer rewards app that rewards shoppers in South Africa for scanning their receipts. And I mean, if we rewind, I guess, 1 or 2 steps and how we came to building the business is we transitioned the fresh business from stores into an e-commerce site. And that was my first entry into the digital world, which was awesome. I was hooked sort of from day one. And it was also the first step to me working with Jed Reilly, who is my co-founder in Mahala. He came on and built this e-commerce business with me. And for about 12 months, we just sold stuff direct to consumer online. And when you sell something online direct to a shopper, you know everything about them, where they live, what's in their basket, how to reach them with advertising tools. And then we started selling products through big retail stores like Spars and Pick n Pays, etc. And we would send a big load of stock to Spar DC in KZN, and then we wouldn't know what store it ends up, who shops it, how to reach them. So we just became really fascinated by this problem. And at the same time, economically as a whole, South Africa has been going through difficult times, and the consumer is very cash strapped. And we thought if we could figure out a way to get a shopper to let us know what they've purchased, and they can earn a reward for it, then the consumer can become the beneficiary of their information, and we can start to learn what people are shopping, which is a big problem brands face that sell through retail stores. So we launched Mahala. It's an app that rewards shoppers for scanning their receipts. And that way we get to know what shoppers are buying, and we can suggest what they should buy next to earn a reward for.
Who had this information before? I mean, were the retailers?
So the retailers have this information.
Okay.
And I mean, all the retailers have slightly different strategies, but retailers like the ShopRite group have been unbelievably good at leveraging this information to build their businesses. You see it with ShopRite X and Checkers 6060. These businesses feel like overnight successes, but in reality, they've accumulated mountains of consumer data and built really smart strategies with how to leverage that data to meet the consumer where their needs are, i.e., ordering stuff online or getting rewarded for what they want to buy.
Yeah.
But that's their gold, and they don't share it willingly. And I think that presents a big opportunity for startups like Mahala.
So you're 2 years in, right?
2 years in, yeah.
Okay. I want to talk about your co-founders.
Yep.
You've got one?
One co-founder, Jed Reilly, and then brought on early team. I mean, everyone in the team, to be honest, feels like a co-founder. But Jed Reilly and I started the business. He's my co-founder. He's an absolute legend and genius.
Were you in a garage at home with Jed when this business started?
Yeah, 100%.
No, seriously?
Yeah. No, seriously.
No, you're lying.
Yeah, definitely. He was in my garage. We were in our mom's garage because it was COVID.
No, you were about to go for a surf in Muizenberg, right?
Yeah. No,
so you weren't actually
early surf and then to the garage.
Okay. So your bond with him has been more than just business. I think you guys are really tight. And I'd love to I can't overemphasize the importance of having really strong co-founders than trying to do it on your own. I know with Kim and Sinj, for me, it's been like a literal lifesaver. I think I'd probably be dead if I didn't have them, as well as an amazing team around us to tell us about that partnership and that friendship and how important it was to building your business.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. I don't think I'd be anywhere without Jed and without the team.
Yeah.
So very lucky to have them. I think what I've learned with Jed is the foundations of a good co-founding relationship is it's essential that you have a shared vision and shared values, but very different skill sets. So, you can always trust your co-founder, or you can kind of relate it to life partnerships and relationships, etc. But when you have a shared vision for something, there's this embedded trust that you're working towards the same thing. And when you have shared values, that you can trust that person. What they're feeling, what they're doing, what they're thinking. You don't have to have this constant check-in. You almost start to develop this weird telepathic relationship, where I'll WhatsApp him some revelation, and he's like, dude, I was just thinking that exact thing. Like, what the hell? So that sort of stuff develops. And then, yeah, I think different skill sets is fundamental. Like, if you rarely get to know Jed and I, you'll realize we're quite similar people. But if you just spent a little bit of time with us, you would think like we're completely different. And it's because we do different things. We offer different things to the business. And I think as like founders, your job is to just create momentum, to fill as many roles as humanly possible in the early stages of your business. And having different skill sets allows you to wear different hats and create momentum faster.
What are your different skill sets?
I'm not very good at talking about my own skill sets, but Jed's skill sets is very detail orientated. He's a product genius. He lives in this product ecosystem. Like, he has this philosophy: everything in the world is a product. And he's just been obsessed with building digital products since as long as I've known him. I've known him since 7 years old. So very detail orientated, and very good at understanding this sort of ecosystem from software engineering to product to customers and revenue.
Okay.
And he can really wear all those hats really well. And I think for me, like, I love the idea of building teams, motivating people, interacting with, like, sort of bridging this gap between Mahala, the startup, and the world that we're trying to connect with. And I guess we complement each other really well as it relates to just getting Mahala out there and delivering and executing on the story that we're creating.
Who were some of your first hires, or who was your first hire, and why?
Yeah, our first hire was Ryan de Kwatsune.
Okay.
He's a software engineer, also grew up with us. So Jed and I launched like a Mahala MVP, like minimum viable product. So basically had an idea. We were like, let's just launch a really simple product and test a few key hypotheses. So we launched like a very simple version of the Mahala app where a guy could upload a receipt and he would earn some airtime in exchange for that. And we got it live, and within like the first 2 days, we had a few thousand people on it. And we were like, okay, we need to build an engineering team now because we need to build this product properly. So Ryan is just a fantastic human being who is an exceptional software engineer. And he's a full stack engineer, and I guess in the early days of company building, kind of want to hire generalists, not specialists. So people who can wear many hats and do lots of things. And Ryan has played that role for Mahala in such a good way. So he was the first hire. And then we hired 1 or 2 more software engineers who helped complement us and Ryan and his team in building our product faster. And now we're on about 15 folks.
Amazing, man.
Yeah. So the team's growing.
What does scale look like to you? I mean, what does the next few years look like to you for companies who are planning scale and managing that balance between retaining the need to have some level of profitability and scale? I know we're going through it at the moment, and I scratch my head all the time. Like, at which point does scale, become the driving factor? At which point do you find profitability? Balancing that is always such a difficult thing.
Yeah.
Where's your headspace at that for?
I think I guess going back to what I said earlier, companies must never forget that their purpose is to deliver value to their customers. And I think that, like, P&L aside, that needs to be at the core of like how you build your business. And I think that if you focus on that correctly for the first 2 to 3 years, you will develop relationship with your customers where they want you to grow and they want you to be successful. So I think from a philosophical perspective, I think if you can get that right and you're building something meaningful, then you should arrive at a place where you are successful enough to keep growing.
Love that.
And if along the way there you don't achieve those relationships, you might realize, the product you're building, maybe there isn't as big a need for it as you originally thought, or there's other things you need to work on to be better at servicing your customers. And then I think if you can get that right, there will be enough capital in the world and there will be enough good people to support you along your journey. I think, like, there's a saying in biology, all things in life regress to the mean. I think, like, there was a period of time where money was free because interest rates were low and lots of startups were raising money. It didn't mean they were great startups. It just means that the average startup was raising more money. Now interest rates are high. There's less risk capital available globally, and I think you just have to be a good, slightly better business who has lots of happy customers to raise money. And it sounds like a simplified answer. It takes so much hard work and detail to get there, but I think it's important to always remember the first principles of like, why are you running your business, you know?
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that wisdom with us, man. It's awesome. And look forward to seeing you again.